going to be discovering exactly how she has contributed to our El Paso community, and she's an amazing addition because El Paso was is a town that needs a lot of different talents, and a lot of us sometimes don't know what the talent is. And as you can see, I'm way over here on the picture. We're running in our COVID era. Yeah, no, let's go ahead and show them the whole studio there a little bit. And during this COVID era, we function with distancing, and we have complexities. But today, we've tested everybody out here that we are unfazed at this time. So we're going to be making sure that we talk about issues that are pertaining to wellness and fitness. And Taylor Lyle comes with a lot of great experience. Taylor, hi, how are you? And we're going to introduce her. So we go camera 3. Got it. Taylor, tell us about yourself, because we're excited to see you. We got to meet you in the process of looking up at the highly talented individuals in El Paso, and you were one of the ones that came in as one of the health coaches, fitness trainers. Tell us about who is Taylor Lyle. Tell us about what's the beginning. What started your story?
Yeah, well, thanks. So I started as a athlete growing up. I played competitively soccer, basketball, and volleyball, and through my own experience, I found out how nutrition impacted my performance and my overall health. So, as an athlete on the go, you're looking for quick choices. So a lot of times it ends up being fast food restaurants. And with that, it really just didn't sit well with me before a competition or after. So I had packed my own things in advance, saw how that really impacted not just my energy, but performance and just, my physique as well. So that's really where I got started in sports nutrition. And then I continued on. I went to the University of Oklahoma, and I got my one of my bachelor's degrees in nutritional sciences. And when I was there, I got to volunteer as a sports nutrition student. And so with that, it just reaffirmed, my decision to take this career path. So I have over 7 years of experience in sports nutrition and a variety of sports. I'm a certified specialist in sports dietetics. And so with that, I have a variety of background with collegiate, high school, and professional athletes, as well as in the military setting.
That's an amazing story. One of the things that we see here is that when we look at this resume that you have here, what we're seeing is that you're highly, highly, highly brought in by a lot of different talented individuals. They kind of saw you from a distance. How did El Paso end up finding you? Tell us a story about that.
Well, I got sought out by a recruiter and to work with the Army. And so with that, it really was, the timing was right. I was ready to relocate back to Texas. That's where I'm from. I was at West Virginia at the time. I helped create their football program.
Ooh, football. Wait. Football. We're into big football. Can you help El Paso Times? I mean, El Paso UTEP. Can you help the UTEP minors?
If they wanted me to, I'd be more than happy to assist them with their nutritional needs. But yeah, I have a strong background. I have experience with Oklahoma, Clemson, Oregon, football as well.
No way.
Yeah.
The Red Tide?
No.
Is that the Clemson? Clemson? No, what are they called?
They're the Tigers.
The Tigers? Okay. I messed up so much. I know about football. Yeah, well, okay.
And then I had the opportunity to spend 2 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys. And then obviously West Virginia after that.
Yeah, you spent some time with the Dallas Cowboys. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was really great. Professional athletes, they're a little bit more in tune to their body because they're just competing at a very higher level. And so it was really great. I loved everyone that I worked with, and I just really learned a lot. I got to do a lot more testing. We looked at, muscle glycogen. We got to do all sorts of body composition testing.
These guys have the endless funds.
Yeah, they really do. And just, the nutritional, whether it was supplements or just different foods we could use, we're really fortunate with the resources we had. So
we're going to be talking about mindset and all that kind of good stuff. So don't let me forget, Ken, about mindset.
Okay.
One of the things that we're looking at here that we want to discuss is how that talent can translate to the people here in El Paso. There's a lot of fitness, a lot of mental positioning, and a lot of dietitian. Mm-hmm. Were you able to work with different types of providers out there with Dallas?
Yeah, and honestly, really, in a lot of my experiences, I mean, you work with strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers, doctors, sports medicine, sports psychologists play a huge role. Also, family.
Sports psychologist.
hmm
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so they were and implemental pact for the athletes, and then you have all sorts of support, whether that in college it's academics, um, life after sports, and just different things, how to survive out in the community, and then in professional they have to also participate in community service, and so they just really have a lot of basically every
The
resource they would
athletes have to
need.
participate in community service.
hmm
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Did you work with any of the doctors out there? Because from my point of view, when I look at an athlete, okay,
Yeah.
and when I look at our athletes here, because we have a
Yeah.
lot of great athletes in El Paso. I mean, talent that just comes and goes.
Right.
And one of the things that happens is no one really pays attention to the nutrition people until they're hurt. Okay, and
Yeah,
then
that's true.
that's what happens when now that because now I'm making $10 million a year, right, as a
Yeah.
football player, and my ACL just snapped, right.
Yeah.
So I know that part of it's going to be the surgeon, okay, and part of it's going to be the rehab. But the most important thing there is the dietitian, okay. So as the person that works with the dietary changes, tell me a little bit about how you were able to assist, athletes return back to get their dreams back.
Right. So there's a lot of different modalities. I mean, obviously it depends on the injury, but most importantly, you want to make sure that they're consuming enough calories, and then from there, they're getting adequate macronutrients. So you look at, carbohydrates. Depending on the injury, it's generally lower, right?
Mhm.
Because you have decreased physical activity level, right? They're not as mobile, and then protein. You need that for tissue and repair. And sorry, and so with that, it's you need adequate protein, higher needs generally, and then and fat. You need that for reducing inflammation, just for your body to function properly, your organs, tissues. So with that, you want to make sure that they have good fats, high in monounsaturated and omega-3 fatty acids. So those are going to be things like uh, um, fattier fish like salmon and tuna, different oils, olive to canola oil, peanut oil, nuts and seeds, avocado. So, just your good healthy fats. Those are all going to accelerate injury. And so also too, you look at different micronutrients. So, when you have a stress fracture or a bone injury, you're going to be looking more at your calcium and vitamin D. Those are important for bone health and formation, right?
Mhm.
As well as immune system. So, and then you're also going to look at, you hear a lot about vitamin C with immune function, but it's actually important for tissue repair, wound healing, and collagen production. So, actually, collagen is also a form of gelatin. And
Yes.
so it's a major protein found in, your connective
Tissues.
yes,
Yes.
thank you. So that includes things like your bones, ligaments, tendons, skin, and so as you increase that production, and makes your tendons and ligaments stronger. So that is something that you can use even in injury prevention.
We're going to talk about that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Kenna, tell me a little bit about we've been focusing a lot about inflammation, huh?
Yes.
Tell us about what is it? What our main topic here is inflammation.
Okay.
As it has it been? It seems to be a part of everything, whether it's working out or anything. But Kenna, what have we been doing with that? What is one of the most important things with inflammation that we've learned?
We learned that it all stems from the gut, and which brings us back to why Taylor's such a great guest to have today, talking about, dietary needs and everything that you need. And she was talking about supplements, which are great. And it's not just supplements we need, though. Sometimes our body does better when we get the nutrients from the real foods, like she was mentioning the avocados and the salmon, because you break it down differently. But all in all, the end goal is always reduce inflammation, heal the gut. We don't want anything in there to get through the permeability. We want our gut to be solid so that our nutrition can be solid, so that our muscles can be solid. Everything is all connected. And everything leads down to, like we just said, inflammation.
So Taylor, we now know that you're surrounded by people that love inflammation. Okay, so let's assume you got an athlete out there, and this dude needs to run. He needs a 440. He's got to be a big lineman. He's got to run a 440.
Yeah.
He's got to be a fast guy, a tight end or something. And they're just having joint pain, and they constantly have issues. Besides the external things like ice and the anti-inflammatories and all the kind of things that they do, how do we change their diet? What kind of things? I know you mentioned some foods there. I want you to go a little deeper into that so we can help people.
Yeah, so just kind of like injury, it's similar. You look at the macronutrients I mentioned, protein, fat, and carbs, and then just overall energy. But for joint pain, there's, fish oil, that also stems from healthy fats. And
are you talking about like the omega oils, omegas 3, 6s, and 9s?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'd be omega-3, which includes DHA and EPA. And so with that,
is there any ratios that you guys like a little bit better, or is it something that's different? 2 to 1, 3 to 1. What do you like?
Generally, I want to say 2 to 1.
2 to 1. That's when I've heard that 2 to 1 is the one we've seen the most. Like 500 milligrams to 1,000 or back and forth.
Yeah, that's where generally the most research is in.
Yes.
And so that can help with joint pain, reduce inflammation. It also enhances bone function, brain function. Sorry. And so, and then you might have heard things like turmeric or curcumin.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So those actually are some spices that can help with inflammation.
Do you give that to? Would you offer that to the athletes too?
I would say try adding that in your food first with the spices. There's definitely supplements available for that as well. With supplements, it's just kind of tricky. You want to make sure that it's safe to use and consume. And so with that, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, they really don't regulate those until, something
big goes on.
Happened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. So with that, you just give guidance. We generally, as a sports dietitian, recommend third-party certification. So that's going to be things, logos that you would see on supplements that have NSF certified for sport, informed choice for sport, banned substance control group. So those are going to be more of your elite certifications.
Particularly with inflammation, one of the things that we've seen is that in an inflammatory issue such as a joint issue, one of the things I've noticed is that omegas, curcumin, vitamin D, all the vitamin C's, A, E's, and C's, the anti-inflammatories, the antioxidants.
Right.
Those are really, really cool. Particularly when it comes to omegas, is sometimes you don't know at which place to stop. Sometimes you can tell, like for vitamin C, as you dose up, you can usually tell when you've just crossed over the line because it does end up kind of giving you a little bit of diarrhea. So you've gone too far. So it could be 1,000 for some people. Sometimes you can dose up to 3 in certain individuals, but you want that at a high level so that it helps with the proteins. The omegas, if you go too far on those, sometimes you'll be laughing and you'll be bleeding out the nose, right? So you've gone too far.
Because you can definitely overdo it. Yes.
Yeah. So when we do that, we try to figure out ways to limit our ability to overpass. And that's where someone like yourself would be very important to be able to come up with a diet. I'm a big believer, I've always been, is that fitness is probably about 10%. 90% of the athlete comes from feeding those genes, which is nutrition. And that's the whole thing, and the genetic design and the sports genes. So what I look at is that when you look at some of these athletes, I know I touched on it, but would you work with the orthopedist? Would they come to you and say, hey, you know what, this guy, we need to get him, he's got to be back in 6 weeks? Because that's the same thing that happens here in El Paso. We got athletes that are national champions. We got Division I, Division II, Division III, NAI, as NASI, I think it's called. Is it NAIS or NASI? One of those. It's really important to get these kids when they get hurt to nutritionally be backed up with the right foods.
Yeah.
So in the event of someone with, let's say, a shoulder injury or a knee injury, how would the orthopedist look for the Dallas Cowboys? And because you did mention that you worked with them, would they want your help?
Yeah. So I mean, there's several different disciplinaries involved, but nutrition does play a huge role. And so that's conversations you would have with sports medicine, whether that's the athletic trainer who spoke to the doc, because they have a busy schedule, or if it's the physician talking directly to you. So depending on the injury would obviously change your nutritional approach.
One of the things that I remember doing is that each sport has different types of nutritions, right?
Yep.
So, and a lot of people don't know that. People think that you can fade the volleyball player the same thing you can be a football player. It's not the same. No,
Yeah, no one size fits all.
No. So this N=1 component. I remember that one of the Dallas Cowboys orthopedic surgeons is Daniel Cooper.
Yep.
Daniel Cooper at the Carroll Clinic is one of the top reconstruction for knees, and has been able to work with a lot of people from Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, many of the Oklahoma wrestlers go to Daniel Cooper. And
Yeah.
one of the things is he does his job. And I got to tell you, the guy will do a reconstruction of a knee in 20 minutes. And he's done. He walks out and says, "I'm done. Bye." Now you got the best knee job, but then that's when you come in. You
Yeah.
come in with the nutritionist, and as well as the coaches for the rehab, the therapist, and that's all about nutrition.
Right.
Talk to me. Wrap yourself around, let's say, just like someone with a knee injury, okay? And let's talk about taking them back into recovery from the beginning, from the time that say, you know what, we got the physical therapist, he did his thing, but we want to feed this guy the right way. How do we
Right.
do that? Go ahead.
Yeah, so look at overall diet, would assess nutritional needs, calculate what they would need, and then factor in the macronutrients, like I said earlier. And,
What are macronutrients? Tell me a little bit about macronutrients, and so we can tell what the El Paso. So we got moms out there right now. Moms are the hardest people to deal with, right? Because I got to tell you, little Bobby, he's an athlete. He's 7 years old. He's 12 years old. He's 13 years old. He's going to be a national champion. Moms in the kitchen want to know what to give their kids who are hurt in the similar fashion. What are macronutrients? And we want to go there.
Yeah, so carbohydrates is your primary energy source. That's a macronutrient, as well as protein and fat. And so you really want to focus on, protein, because you're trying to rebuild that muscle tissue, right? And you want it to grow. So protein needs to be a focus, as well as fat, because that's going to help reduce inflammation, help the healing of the tissue as well. And so those are the two primary ones that you want to look at. And then carbohydrates you definitely still need, even just for brain function, right? And so you just don't need as much when you're injured because you're not moving as much. So those are the macronutrients you want to look at. And then when you have that confirmed, you want to start looking into micronutrients. So if it's just a tissue injury instead of bone, you're going to want to look at more of like a zinc, right? So you're going to need that. Well, that's a micronutrient that you're going to need for tissue repair, regeneration. It also helps with immune system function. And so vitamin A also is one that helps with tissue repair and regeneration, as well as helps once you have an injury, it helps reverse the immune system suppression. So those are going to be what you look at, as well as vitamin C. So vitamin C plays a role in wound healing, tissue repair, immune system, boosting the immune system. So those are going to be ones that you'll want to pay closer attention to.
Collagen. I've heard a lot about collagen, and I use it here. But what is the perspective that they do at a collegiate level or at let's say national football league level?
Yeah, so we actually would make gelatin, so just your store-bought gelatin. And we would add that with vitamin C, whether you want to have a cup of orange juice or you actually want to put a supplement of vitamin C powder in the gelatin. And so vitamin C helps enhance collagen production. So you want those two together, gelatin and vitamin C, to help with collagen. And so what that does is it's going to strengthen that tendon and ligament, making it stronger, making it less prone to an injury.
I gotta tell you that's great knowledge, and I love hearing about this stuff, because a lot of these people, we kind of go in there and we read about gelatin or cartilage or what does that mean, the hydroxyproline, hydroxylysine, what do those things mean? And we learn that tissue repair needs vitamin C needs it. a lot of people don't know this, but the whole ascorbic acid thing happened a long, long time ago, which was back in the day with conquistadors, because we have a lot of conquistadors here. The conquistador Oñate came here, right? But they were called limeys. Did you know that? Limeys, they were people, they would lick limes to make it through the long traveling trips between the ocean, right? Because
why was that?
this was back in probably the 1400s and 1500s, right? They realized that the vitamin C would stop this thing called scurvy. And they would bleed. They would bleed in the gums. But if you licked lime, okay, it would basically stop the process. Because vitamin C is so important to vascular repair, to tissue repair, that it's so necessary. So we can't forget it, because one of the biggest demands is, do you think an athlete is not going to be stressed out, worried? And that's where the emotional stage burns the stress level.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that was very important to me, and I feel that a lot of people don't know about this, is the psychological component of an athlete and the dietary issues. What are the ways that you kind of help your athletes and the people that you work with handle their lives in terms of an injury, or try to make them better with nutrition and psychology?
Yeah, so psychology, I really do refer that out to the expert. But with nutrition, I just help manage a lot of time. I mean, eating is such a big part of your day to day. Hopefully you're eating most of the day, if not all day. So, I mean, just having a good relationship with food, and making sure that, people are enjoying food, and, that they don't have any negative relationship with that. That obviously ties into psychological as well. But yeah, I do refer them to the expert. But, there's a lot of things that can influence not just, an injury, or whether it's weight, anything like that, body composition. But, you have to look at other factors. So the stress, right? Psychological, sleep, is there any environmental factor, socioeconomic? There's just so many things that can impact an athlete, just even beyond nutrition. So it's really interesting when you do come together as all disciplinaries, because everyone plays their part, to the holistic approach of improving performance and overall health.
You mentioned something there, and it was the sleep, the recovery time, the ability for someone to we're, without getting too theological, the designer intended for us to have sleep. But if we're depressed, if we're having anxiousness, if we have a rise in cortisol, an abnormal flux between the cortisols and the melatonin in the brain, you don't rest and you don't repair. So how do we talk to them? How do you, as a nutrition expert, talk to them about how important sleep is?
Yeah, so I talk about sleep hygiene, have conversations with,
What is that? Sleep hygiene.
Yeah,
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so sleep hygiene is kind of like getting your bedtime routine, right? So, making sure that you yourself have good hygiene, that your sheets are clean, those have hygiene. And, the research shows having a cold room, generally 68 degrees Fahrenheit, a dark room, eliminating noise.
Oh, I'm starting to love everything you say. Yeah, you know what? We love this, right? Okay, so wait. You got a lot of subjects there. Okay, so first about sleep hygiene. So no bugs in the bed and clean sheets,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Talk to me about that.
Well, I don't know how much more to comment
on that. The research.
I'm like, you just put it in the washer. But
but clean sheets have been determined to be so important, huh?
Yeah, it's just good hygiene really does promote better sleep quality versus, I guess, going to bed dirty. So,
yes.
So that shows, that's important. And then, you also look at blue light emission, right? So from your TV, your phone, tablet, whatever it is, really trying to set a timer for yourself to put that down at a certain point before bed, or getting the cool orange glasses that
yes
that can help the blue light go away. And so there's some routines you can do, and for nutrition, you want to avoid processed foods, higher fat foods that have high saturated fat, trans fat. So those are going to be your fried foods, your baked goods.
Now that you mentioned that, you were talking about the processed foods. Kenna, you have a
Mhm.
neat way of figuring out where processed foods are in the store. What is that way?
Oh, yes. To just when you're grocery shopping, shop along the edges of the store. Don't go into the aisles because as soon as you start going into the aisles is when you start getting into all the processed foods, all of the added ingredients that aren't necessarily good for you. So if you just try and stay on the outsides, that's where you're going to get most of your produce and your meats and your everything you need. Just right on the outside. Don't go in.
Don't go in. Well, I'll tell you what. I realize that we have to go in there and we have to go into that area of the inner aisles. But the more organic, the more we can control our budget on the outside rim and minimize the internal areas, specifically those areas where things are in bags. Those are the areas that are processed food, and we got to avoid those, specifically if we're trying to recover from an injury. Moms, look, I know you're the craziest of all people. When we want our kids to be good. Little Bobby, little Lincoln. If Lincoln gets throttled, and Lincoln is Kenna's young little boy who's got a lot of energy, and if he gets thumped on the field, right? What's mom going to do? Oh, happy Lincoln. No. She's going to get well, I've seen most moms get all over their kids. But what they can do is they can give them a proper nutrition. And that's an important part. And sleep hygiene is so important. And I don't want to leave that subject because it's so cool, the sleeping process. And you were mentioning something specifically about the sheets being clean. I can tell you, right now, sometimes we don't have the help because of the COVID. Everyone is limited from going to help you at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is your sheets are a little longer, maybe dirty. You don't have them as clean, and that may happen, right? So if that happens, you don't sleep as well, right? So I hope that makes sense to a lot of people. So I don't want people out there telling their wives, you need to clean my sheets so I sleep better, but it does matter. How about timing of sleep for an athlete? Is there a better time?
Yeah, so you want to get, 8 hours of sleep if you can. And some ages require more. So when you're younger, you actually need closer to probably 9 to 10 as a child. And then as an adult, you don't need as much because you're not growing and developing. So, but you still want to aim for 8, if not more. And research has come out that if you have the luxury of taking a 30-minute nap during the day, that also contributes to overall quantity of your sleep.
Right now we've been going through the COVID protocol, and there's kids in school that are athletes. And I got to tell you, it's one of the craziest things to watch. One thing is the athletes are going crazy because they can't run around a lot. But one unique thing that has happened as a result of sleep, I got to tell you, I've seen this in my own house. My daughter grew about an inch. Just because she's sleeping more.
Yeah.
And they're under a lot of pressure when they're in school, but because of the COVID thing, they're sleeping better. They're not spending as much time going out of the house. They can't leave. They're stuck in the homes. But I got to tell you, my daughter grew, and she's 17 years old, a whole inch from 5'6" to 5'7". Why does that happen? And tell me a little bit about what the sleep has to do with growth, because that's important.
Yeah, so growth hormone is released when you're sleeping. So when you get optimal hours of sleep, it allows that to fully develop and be produced properly. So yeah.
Will it work for me?
Maybe not in the same way of growing an inch, but
I want to grow. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, so growth hormone has been known to spill out of the bloodstream by the pineal gland and at a certain time of night, a few hours into sleep. And man, it's magical. It makes you grow. It really makes you grow. And it ain't going to happen if you don't get enough sleep. So as an athlete, it's one of those things that nature has provided for us that provides a magical ability for just a natural way of healing. Mm-hmm. So it's important. So what else do we do for athletes in terms of recovery processes, in terms of assessing not only their sleep hygiene, but I killed you there. Sorry, I tackled you there. So hope you can regain the whole thing because it's so important.
No, it's okay. You really have to look at nutrient timing too. So what is an athlete having to eat or drink right after workout? That plays a really important process in jump-starting that recovery. So depending on the intensity and duration of the exercise, when it's more moderate to high intensity, you're going to want to make sure that you have enough carbohydrate and protein because you would have used those energy stores up and depleted those in your muscles when you work out. So carbohydrate and protein allow you to refuel and regenerate those energy stores as well as the muscle. And so normally you want a 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrate to protein. So that would mean, 60 grams of carbohydrate to 20 grams of protein. So if you have a nice tall glass of chocolate milk, 2 cups, about that should be adequate to refill and replenish those needs.
Chocolate milk. Okay, now you pick chocolate milk. Now most people think it's a bad thing, but tell me why it's such a good thing.
Yeah, so it's full of the macronutrients we talked about earlier. So it has good, healthy fats too. It's natural. And then it also has electrolytes. So electrolytes is primarily you lose sodium through sweating. And so those are things you're going to also need to replenish to make sure that you have optimal hydration after working out as well. And then it's fortified with different vitamins and minerals. So you hear a lot with bone health and drinking milk. Yes, it does have calcium and vitamin D. A lot of times it has, some other vitamins like vitamin A as well. So, so it's just you get everything in one beverage, which is awesome.
You
You-
had,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Good.
You had mentioned earlier something about calculating what each athlete needs. How do you have like a certain formula that you use for that, or how does it vary per athlete? Because even if they're in the same sport, they could be different positions, and that could vary what they need, right?
Yeah, so energy needs I typically use for athletes, and it's an active equation, and so it's called Mifflin St. George. So that's what I use for adults, healthy adults and active adults.
Is it
And
Mifflin or Mifflin?
Mifflin?
Oh, Mifflin. Okay,
Uh-huh.
gotcha. St. George got it.
Yeah, sorry, might have been hard.
No, me. You know what? I like repeating because I'm thick.
No, it's okay. So you could Google that and find that. And it's gender specific. So, there's one for female and one for male. And from there, that would give you just, your energy needs, which takes into account age, height, and weight. And so from there, you look at, how active is this individual once I have their basic needs to just exist. Well, you don't just exist, you move around, right? It takes energy to just get out of bed, brush your teeth, and then you start actually having physical activity or exercising in there. The needs go up, right? So with that, you have a physical activity level. But also, it's great now that you have all these GPS data. So whether it's like a Fitbit, a Garmin, even Apple Health, if you have an iPhone, it tracks, your steps or the distance you've gone, intensity. And so all that calculates your calories burned, which has to be factored into the overall equation, right, to properly assess needs. So then when you get to sports specific, you have all that data to determine what that person needs, but then you also have to look at your macronutrient needs are going to be different for sports. So, a marathon runner, it's going to need a lot higher carbohydrate intake versus your lineman football player. So those get taken into account, as well as protein, and fat generally stays the same no matter what the sport is, just because you need a certain fat percentage just for essential fat storage. And
In terms of each individual, and I'm thinking I'm thinking in football, I'm looking at a linebacker who's the metamorph, really unbelievable athlete. Usually is butt up against the fullback, and they got to go kiss each other somewhere down the line there, right?
Yeah.
And then you have your center, who looks a little different than the outside tackles, right?
Yeah.
So the weight that we typically do this is through a BMI test and BIAs, basal metabolic systems, or bioimpedance assessments. Do you use those in the military to assess and to help the athletes with an awareness as to how much muscle, how much bone density, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so you mentioned BMI, and that is used in the military as well as clinical settings to determine if an individual is healthy or unhealthy. But it actually is not the best way to determine that, right? It doesn't take into account gender. It doesn't take into account age or your body type, body composition. So you mentioned bioelectrical impedance analysis. That would be body composition. So body composition takes a look at fat mass, your fat-free mass, which is also referred to as lean mass, and then you get a body fat percentage. which a lot of athletes tend to care about, is their body fat
Yeah, I
percentage.
do.
Yeah.
At my age, I do.
So there's a lot of different methods and tools you can do to assess that, and that is really a better indicator for if an individual is healthy or unhealthy. And general guidelines for a body fat percentage are different for male versus female. So, a male, you really don't want anything over 21% body fat. Female would be anything over 31% body fat. That would be deemed unhealthy, more the overweight, obese category. So anything under that, is good, optimal. And then, you have even lower end of ranges. It's typically your pretty athletic population. So there's different standards. And with the military, we have what's called a bod pod, which measures air displacement. It measures body composition through air displacement. Sorry, and
is that the one that get inside of it?
Yes.
Okay,
it looks like
a
a pod. Some people say a spaceship, or everyone has their analogy. But so what it does is, you want to compress all the air out. So generally, you'd wear compression shorts, and some people have dreads or just really long hair. So, you also need to compress.
Dreads in the military? You tell me how that's going to work. The Rastafan guy at the
Yeah, sorry. I kind of got more into like the more athletes that can have
Hey,
their
Sergeant
hair
Carter,
longer.
we got the guy with dreads.
Yeah, that'd be more athletic population. They have to have shorter
I got
hair.
you.
But yeah, so that is a method we could use, and it's just a quick test. It's not invasive, so we're not pinching your skin. You're just getting into this pod, and then it measures through the air. It measures what your fat mass is, your lean mass, and then you get a body fat percentage. And then the bioelectrical impedance analysis, a common brand, is InBody, and what you basically you're holding. I don't know.
An 8-point impedance assessor.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's kind of like electrodes that get the electrical signal through
Yes.
your nerves. Yeah.
Yes.
And so from that, it's able to calculate your body composition as well. And it's pretty quick. It's a lot more accessible and a lower cost than a bod pod would be. So we do have that available as well. And then, if you have a lot of resources, like some of the professional teams and collegiate programs, the DEXA is the gold standard for body composition. But it's really not accessible. It's pretty expensive. And the nice thing about that is you can just it's minimal X-ray exposure, but you can wear loose fitted clothing. So you don't have to worry too much about apparel. And then it's just depending on the machine, it's 7 to 12 minute scan. And then the cool thing about it, it doesn't only just break down your body composition, but it looks at bone mineral density. So you can actually see how strong your bones are. And if it's a good tool to have, that if you have hopefully a scan prior to a stress fracture, you can actually take a scan post stress fracture and see, where your bone mineral density was prior to the injury and try to work back to that.
The DEXA test has been the gold standard for osteoporosis of the hips,
Yep.
and it's what we use all the time to determine if they're improving with whatever they're doing. If the numbers changed drastically in one or other direction, hopefully it's so sensitive that we can actually see the betterment or the I guess the deterioration of the bone densities.
Yeah.
So doctors that do, let's say, hip replacements, they do the DEXA because they want to know what they're going to be working on and if this bone's going to be brittle or not. And it's a great way of doing things. We have discussed the pod and the different types of things like InBody. And what we've come up with is that simplicity is probably the fastest, and by the DEXA, the cost, as well as the bod pod, the complications of finding a facility.
Yep.
None of us have the U.S. military, but the InBody seems to be a real great way of doing that. UTEP has those, and they use those and their personal trainers and their fitness trainers, physical therapists do that. So it is a real good way, and maybe it's not not as accurate as the Bod Pod, but it comes within 1%. But here's the cool thing. It's consistently accurate. So in other words, even if it's 1% difference, it stays that 1% difference. So you can see variations. So I'm glad that they do that in the U.S. military. Now,
and the models have improved, over time too. So they're getting more and more accurate all the
yes,
time.
yes. Yeah, let me ask you, in terms of the military, in terms of how you train the athletes, because you're part of us now. One of the things about El Paso is that once you live here about 3 to 4 years, you become part of the community and people start knowing about you. Tell me what you want them to know about you, okay? Because what this whole podcast is about you, and we want them to know what kind of resources, how they get connected with you. I've seen your website. It's a beautiful website. It's got really cool information on there, and I do recommend it. What's the website again?
It's tailoredforperformance.com.
.com. Well, you can see her there, and she's actually doing some training with some athletes. But tell us what they can look for in terms of you as an individual, and why would someone seek you out, and what kind of things do you like to work with, or your thing that you enjoy?
Yeah, so my thing would be working with elite athletes or just someone who is interested in sports.
Okay, moms, you hear that? Okay, you want little Bobby to get stronger, little Lincoln? Okay, well, you know what? Okay, go ahead, continue.
And so, I'm all about individualized, personalized nutrition. So really tailored nutrition to improve your overall performance and health. So that is what you're going to get from me, whether you seek me out on my website, Instagram, whatever, that is what I offer. So whether that is to improve, your body composition, you have weight goals, maybe you want to lose weight, you want to gain weight, and you're struggling to do that. Maybe you have some food allergies or food intolerances, different food sensitivities. I can help you through that as well.
What does that mean? Now that you touched on that subject, that cherry is not going to go by without me plucking it. Okay, so food sensitivities, what does that mean? Tell me.
Yeah, so you could have a big one is lactose intolerance. So you might not be completely have a dairy allergy, right? Or completely lactose intolerant 100%. You might be able to have different variations of dairy. So it's normally has to do with the portion size. So maybe you can only have a cup of milk instead of having milk throughout the day, and it doesn't bother your digestive system. You're not having any upset stomach, anything like that. Gluten's another one. So celiac disease, people that can't have gluten products. So, you might have a sensitivity to gluten.
That's been big on the news lately. Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is gluten so crazy, all over the news? And what are the things that we can do? Because it appears that gluten just is horrible. And I want to put it in perspective for people from an athletic point of view.
Yeah. So gluten, if you don't have a sensitivity to it, you really want to encourage having it because that's going to be your carbohydrates. It's going to be your primary source of energy, right? There are foods that are gluten-free that will still give you the carbohydrates that you need for performance. So those are things, you really want to sit down and figure out exactly how sensitive you are to that, because for an athlete, you really need that to perform best as well as recover.
Taylor, if we have an individual who is gluten sensitive or food sensitive or different foods or different issues with different types of varieties, how is it that we can pinpoint, in your experience that you've done, pinpoint the actual thing that's the culprit causing the food sensitivity? Because I got a lot of people that says I eat this and I just feel bloated. I feel sick. I don't feel my food. My brain is foggy after I eat the foods. What are the things that we can do to assess and kind of come up with a plan that is of a higher level than just say stop eating?
Yeah, so sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what food it is that is causing the issues, because generally you don't just have one food group by itself. Let's say if you're having a meal, you're not just going to have the pasta, right? You're going to have maybe a protein with that and maybe the sauce and different things. So it can be tricky, but a way to try to determine what it is causing those GI issues is you focus on the one food group. So you would try to have it by itself, and then, you see if you have any symptoms, maybe 30 minutes up to a few hours afterwards. And then if you don't have any symptoms, then you move on to the next food group. And that's how you can assess or pinpoint.
So let's
what
say it's
is causing.
albumin, like an egg. You would be able to track it down if you stop eating the food and you just feel better, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I got to tell you, there's a lot of technology that I did not realize that's out there, specifically regarding food sensitivities, and we talk about it often, and it's really great to see the role play of interdisciplinary approaches that you have. One of the things is about an interdisciplinary type of practice is you have dietitians, you have orthopedists, you have physical rehab people, you have
Yep.
people that can understand the deepest understandings of genetics because the tests are easily run to find out the susceptibility, the homozygous, the heterozygous genes, the SNPs, what they call, singular nucleic polymorphisms. Is that what they call it? What the word is, right? SNPs, that really allow to further assess where the person's predispositions are. It's really cool that you're here. When you're saying about that you talk to people and then you work with people, do you do telemedicine as well?
Yes, I actually am right now, just because COVID-19 restrictions. But yes, so I can do things virtually, whether that's over a Zoom call, a phone call, email.
What's their phone number you can call? So because we're going to put it all over the place. Here, what's a good number that you like? I'll do it later then. Okay, I got you. Okay, so we'll do that.
I can give an email right now.
You're first of all, a lot of things that we've learned is that she works with a lot of your unique athletes, people on there that sounds like special forces out there. So that she's really connected with the science of dealing with the most elite athletes. So her privacy is very important. So if that makes sense, right? So
not that I don't want people calling me, but
well, I'll tell you what. You know what? It's very important to see that you have. You know what? If I was watching this, there is no way that I would not find you. Okay, I would find you. Taylor Lyle, and I would make sure I'd nail you. And then at that point, we would call you and say, little Bobby, little Lincoln, little Alex. You know what? They need some help here because, you know what? We got a lot of people that want the best for their kids. And these athletes are just incredible. So you have that knowledge and the way to sit down and work with moms and dads, primarily moms, because moms don't want little Lincolns to get thumped. It's that simple. I use Lincoln because it's Ken's little boy. He's a special little energy machine. So one of the things is that we want to do is figure out what other ways do you communicate with your clientele?
Well, face to face, if I have the opportunity to. I put out a lot of blogs and different social media posts. So actually yesterday I talked about gut health in my blog. And then also yesterday I pushed out, vitamin C food sources on my Instagram. So, that's another way people can contact me.
Can you give out your Instagram address?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's
it's
that one?
just my name. So Taylor, TAYLOR _ Lyle. That's LILE.
Okay, perfect. We can find you that way because I'll be a follower and we'll be following those ideas. It's very important to stick together. A little bit of background. El Paso has been a town where it's been very segregated, but now it's getting very well connected. And the talent that is coming from afar, you came from Oklahoma, from Dallas. Where else did you go?
South Carolina, West Virginia, Oregon. I was in England at one point.
Dude, it sounds like a song. You have really everywhere you've raked up knowledge.
Yeah, I have.
And now you brought it here to El Paso, right?
Yes.
So I mean, from England to Dallas Cowboys to the rooms to the furthest places, you bring it to El Paso for us. We feel very privileged. I know I speak for Kenna too. I do, don't I? No, I don't. But I can say that she's very knowledgeable, and we need people like this around El Paso. And I got to tell you, it did not exist 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not to this level. Maybe a little bit more 10 years ago, but 20 years ago when I first came to town, it was not existent. This kind of intense knowledge. What brought you to? You were recruited. Just to go back a little bit on that, you were recruited.
Yeah.
And what did they say?
So they obviously wanted me to work with the Army, and so it's a pilot program. So we're still trying to develop the resources and just the standards of it. So it's exciting. I get to help create some of the policies and procedures and just how we operate as a department. So it's myself, couple strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainer, and physical therapist. So we operate as a performance team.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. And so, it was closer to home for me. I wanted to my experience was in collegiate and professional athletes, so I really wanted to tap into the military tactical athlete and just really broaden my practice. So.
Well, the famous Taylor Lyle's here, okay, and as she becomes the gold standard of fitness, tell me where you're headed. What kind of things are you headed for, and what's the future hold for you and the total experience of what you've done in the past?
Yeah, so the future, I'm actually, so Taylor for Performance right now, like I said, I cater to elite athletes trying to tailor nutrition to improve their performance and health. And I'm in the process of developing an app right now. So that's really exciting for me. Hopefully I can disclose more when it's, finished with development,
Yes.
hopefully the first of next year. So that's what I have going on personally. And then, professionally with my full-time job, I think that, I definitely want to stay in the military sector. Even tapping in more to special forces would be very, very exciting.
Can you talk about that? Can you talk about the experiences that you have in special forces? Because I got to tell you, all these athletes, they will one day be adults. And the wrestlers, the high football players, the linebackers, those are the ones that go into special forces when they go to the military. So how is it like to deal with them on the adult version of the crazy athletes, intense athletes?
Yeah, so along with combat forces and professional athletes, it's different. You don't just have, they typically have a family or they have other things going on in their life besides just themselves that they have to consider. So you have a little bit more variation, more real life experience and application, right? So it's different, but it's exciting. You can get a little bit more technical with them, and they're just more likely to do it sometimes. Although you have your younger athletes too that want to get better and want to look like whoever their idol is. That's maybe a professional athlete or, so they will do what it takes to get to that level of performance and an athlete.
I know that a lot of the military members have to eat like MREs and stuff
Yep.
like that when they're in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed a change in their performance or
Yeah.
anything like that when they come back, since those meals aren't, I'm sure they're not quite what
Yeah.
nutritional standards, they do the job, but
Yeah, so they definitely don't prefer MREs,
Right.
the ones that I've dealt with and in the field. And a lot of times it's the only sources that they have. And so I have noticed a trend of losing weight and just being underperformed, dehydrated when they're out in the field. Yeah.
mhm.
When you said that, what is it about the MRE that they don't prefer? I really want to
All
know
of
that.
it.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen one. It has a lot of different components. There's, it just depends on what you get. But a lot of times, say it's a packet that's already like powdered, right? So you have to add the liquid, and then they actually have this like heating pad so it can heat up. But it's still you're having a lot of dehydrated foods that you're heating up.
And that would be was that under processed foods? Is it more processed?
Yeah,
or
it is
how has
processed.
how has that, I guess because the military is going to take care of its people, right? With even MREs, how have they balanced the, or maybe it's a question that no one knows because it seems like top secret, but the ability to make food not with preservatives, but still good quality for these individuals in the sense of follow the most holistic approach for their health.
I don't know that they don't have any preservatives because they have to be shelf stable for so long. So they have to have those to be able to be good.
I wonder if what it would be to eat MREs while you're pregnant, huh? Have you done that?
Not while I'm pregnant, but I can say MREs are
Not going to cut it?
they're not very tasty.
Okay. Is there a favorite one? Like
my husband has a favorite one.
Which one is that?
Yeah, I can't remember what it is, but he's like, yeah, I always they try to like trade each other
Yeah, they
in the
do,
field.
yeah.
Like, oh, you got this one. And they have a little, some of them have a little Skittle pack. And so he's like, always wants the Skittle pack ones.
I think I heard the Alfredo one is
the
the favorite.
Alfredo one?
Yeah, and sometimes they'll have a little like a protein bar, or they'll have like a bag of pretzels. So they get other things besides just that, main entree option too.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, it's been a joy. I could go on for like another 2 hours talking. We've been on an hour, by the way.
Oh wow, I didn't even know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way when we're having fun. I
No.
want to bring you back, and I know
that'd
you
be
have a lot of
great.
friends that are in the world of fitness. We love to hear what El Paso has to offer, not only to present you guys and to showcase you as an individual primarily, but also for the awareness of El Paso to see what kind of options are. It doesn't matter that you may be in the military. You offer a lot of knowledge, and little moms and moms with little Lincolns, I use as an example, they want the best for their kids, and they're not going to put up with little Lincoln getting thumped. So one of the things is I want to give my child the best. I know that you mentioned things like chocolate milk, right?
Yep.
To me, that's good, but I've also noticed that people that like wrestlers that cut, and they're, let's say, 138 and they got to go to 112, right? Those guys that cut to 112, they break from doing that. And if they
Yeah.
have the proper nutrition through the process, specifically the micronutrients and the macronutrients through the process, you're going to send your kid through a hurricane, and you're a hurricane fighter, one of those airplanes that goes into the deep hurricane. You're going to make sure the bolts are on that airplane really well. If the kid has poor nutrition and he goes into a battle, he's going to snap, and you're going to see it in form of a broken ankle. You're going to see it in a snapped shoulder, a clavicle dislocation. It's going to come out that way because these nutritional insights are very good. Like chocolate milk. My secret was for my kid, it was Ensure, just because it was the old for the old people, good enough for the old people, and the kids don't want to, they want to carry chocolate milk on them, but they'll pop an Ensure between classes. But the point is micronutrition, macronutrition, and making sure that each child has the right stuff. So I really appreciate the fact that you brought this to our light, because it's information that I want to go over that. So I really want you to come back, and
I'd love to come back.
and you're gonna enjoy, because we're gonna make you gonna put your grill everywhere. We'll even get you some metal grill for teeth. No, just kidding. To make it look good, so it'll be the Taylor Lyle grill. So we're gonna put it everywhere so people can see it, and we're very proud to have you, because this kind of experience that you really are international at this point, right? Because you've gone to all over the place, right? Right? It sounds like a Pitbull song. So it really is something special, and I really look forward to having you back with people, so that we can discuss even more complex issues.
Yeah.
Because I know you know a lot about BMI, okay, BIAs, and that deep science is. We have a lot of highly intelligent individuals here. We got UTEP, we got engineers everywhere. We got the people with the thick glasses that will tell you about the macronutrients, micronutrients at the molecular level. So what we want to do is we want to bring that kind of knowledge here and showcase what practicality comes, because it's no good that it's in a book. We need people to explain it to us. And I really appreciate you coming out and sharing that with us. Any other comments as to what you want to leave us with?
Just thanks so much for having me. It's been really a pleasure just talking to you guys. And if there's any questions anyone has, please feel free to reach me at my website. That's taylorforperformance.com. That's with a Y, not an I. and then again at my my Instagram, Taylor_Lyle. So thank you so much for your time.
Yes, we're really appreciative of you, and we can see ourselves here, and we're in the little podcast, and we're experiencing a little bit of social distancing. If I come down with sick, it was her.
I've been tested almost every day.
You really? Oh, really?
Well,
really?
just like temperature and things like
the temperature every day. Yeah, because we're testing everybody. We got to do that forehead, make you feel like you're going to be shot in the head somewhere around there. It's kind of a crazy thing. But anyway, thank you so much, and we
thank
definitely
you.
look forward to having you back, because you've been a real great source of just being fun conversation. Thank you so much,
Oh,
and
thank you.
we look forward to having it. And I do believe we're stopped.